Tonight on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to, dive into what's some of the issue that individuals in the Asian community have toward Black Americans. There was a video that kind of came across my desk from the 1960s, and this issue about having an issue with Black Americans has been going all the way back then. Now, we haven't done nothing to nobody. We have not collectively done anything to no group of people. But I want to get into this video tonight, what this guy is saying about us in the 1960s and how his community actually feel about us. And then we're going to fast forward to 2023 with someone similar to him and what they're pushing and what they're promoting as well. So let's go ahead on and break down this video.
Most Orientals feel more openly hostile to most other Americans.
Now, he said that most of his people feel openly hostile toward Black Americans. And when I stopped it, there's a white girl that's sitting right there in the frame, and she asked why. Now listen to his response.
I'm not sure. Part of it, that's certain.
He said he's not sure. In other words, we haven't done you anything. We haven't done your people anything. But listen to what he's having an issue with Black folks at that time.
Dislike the civil rights movement, because there's people that have worked with the civil rights are saying, the government, you give us training, give us this and that, and so we can become like you. And
yes, Black folk are saying, yes, we need the resources so we can be self-sufficient on our own. Black people wasn't begging for handouts, they was asking to be self-sufficient. Okay? On top of the terrorism that Black people were suffering at the hands of the white supremacists. And he's saying his community took issue with that. But let's continue.
The Orientals take a great deal of pride saying, we had San Francisco and we had riots too, but we made it on our own. Now why the hell are you taxing us and using our tax money to raise you up when we could do it ourselves? The reaction against is very, very strong. Really very strong.
Now you heard what he said. He said that their reaction to us is very, very strong. This was in the 1960s, ladies and gentlemen. He's upset. He talking about basically, I don't want to pay taxes to help out Black people. When it wouldn't be a country if it wouldn't be for Black people. You ran from your homeland. Why didn't you go stay in your homeland and build that up? Why you running over here talking about you want entitlements to universities and everything else that you want entitlements to? Let's call it what it is. You're so hostile toward Black Americans, why you not hostile in your homeland? You ran from your homeland over here. If you're so smart like everybody say you are, well, why don't you go to your homeland and make that better? Listen, your homeland right now is doing pretty good, actually. Why don't you want to be there? There's a lot of universities in China that can teach you and that can make you doctors and everything else that's happening right there in your own homeland. You don't have to have any hostility toward Black folks. But what the whole time, while we got the civil rights movement going on, see, the white supremacists knew why he said to call them the model minority. Now you understand why white supremacists did it? Because, see, I've never seen this footage before. This is something I just saw today. Openly hostile toward Black Americans that did them nothing. How many times Black Americans have stood up for them over the years? Supported their businesses over the years. When they first came here, they put them in our neighborhoods. Because one thing that the white people didn't want, the white people did not want them in their neighborhoods, and they still don't want a big mass influx of them in their neighborhood either. Okay, a couple of families can come in, fine. But let the whole Asian communities come flooding the white people neighborhood. They gonna leave that neighborhood to them because that's how they are. They don't want nobody around them but them, and we know this. So they team up with the white supremacists against us. But see, the issue, well, listen to what he said about the civil rights movement. In other words, we're fighting back against white supremacy. They are so cowardice. And this is why I say cowardice. You should be fighting back against white supremacy too. If you go all the way back and just know American history, look at how Chinese immigrants were treated when they came here. All the racism that happened to Chinese immigrants. They had the Chinese Exclusion Act. At one point in time, they wouldn't even let no Chinese women in this country because they didn't want them to reproduce. They did not want them here. And even people like Frederick Douglass have said it's wrong to have a Chinese Exclusion Act. We were speaking up for Chinese people and all kind of different Asian groups for a long time. But you hostile toward us, and our people have fought for you. See, it's okay because it's coming full circle. I mean, this is a full circle moment for black people, and I'm glad about that. Now, let me take you to a lady that came up on my radar in the midst of all this Supreme Court decision, and we'll jump back into it. So the day that the decision came down from the Supreme Court, this woman, acti9n popped up on my timeline as I was going through what people were saying at the time. Now, I told you that I'm starting to notice a trend of Chinese immigrants being at the forefront of these, attacks or unraveling or trying to do different things against black Americans. Because I told you, I don't think we should just be using a blanket term like Asians. I think we need to figure out what Asian is doing it. Just like, as I said before, we need to not, when people just don't say black, they say, okay, where you from? It's the same thing with them. This woman is Chinese, okay? So she says immigrant, ESL, English is a second language, talking about the I guess by side, president of Asian Wave, co-founder of Place, advisor, Final Five, Fair Board, and that Fair situation is very interesting. And she said the tweets are hers. So we want to look at a few things here. And when we fast forward into 2023, so in her tweets here, organizations like Stop AAPI Hate are race grifters, hoarding funding and seeking political capital on Asian victims to feed progressives. They don't represent Asian communities. I know. They say Box is awful, uses headline that is refuted in the actual article. Now, of course, this is Stop AAPI Hate says that 70% of Asians support affirmative action. She talking about here, when this person made a tweet and everything, somebody refused to acknowledge the discrimination against Asians. A lot of crew replies, but the civil ones point to legacy admissions. New York Dem senators have a bill, but Ivies are fighting it. Well, why didn't you put that in the court case? Why are you worrying about a bill? Then she's talking about more of them, they on team white supremacy. Of course she is. Of course they're talking about legacy admissions. But let's go down to the original tweet that it kind of got my attention with her. She's talking about NYC Asians, because this woman's in New York, have become more politically engaged and not blindly voting for Dems. It said after the SAT, they said reactions from local Dems on the SCOTUS ruling show how they don't care about our civil rights for equality. The shift to the political right will continue. So she's a right winger. Let's go down here. This is what originally caught my attention. Grace Mean, which is a Democrat, she was standing with Biden when they signed the Asian hate crime bill, said Asian Americans are being used as pawns and will be treated as scapegoats under the false assumption that we will benefit. Asians are being used by the same people who purport to care about them getting into universities or are passing alien land laws preventing them from buying homes. Yeah, that's actually happening. Actually, right here in Texas, that's happening. Believe it or not, and this is a Republican state, so she's not lying about that portion. And then acti9n here says Asians have been discriminated in college admissions. We sued because it harms Asians. Ending affirmative action benefits Asians. It said Grace telling us we are pawns is demeaning and belittle our fight for our civil rights in America. Now, of course, this is what caught my attention originally. See, I told my daughter today is a big day. They've ended affirmative action. And then it said, isn't it what you've been fighting for? She asked. She said, I said yes. That's what she's been fighting for. And we know how that's going to turn out. Now, let's go to the website of in the top here. Let's go back to scroll to the top so you know what website we're going to. So she has the website AsianWaveAlliance.org. And so this is the website right here. It said voting for common sense to safeguard our future. Now, Asian Wave Alliance is we are a nonpartisan political club for Asian American New Yorkers, representing constituents across the 5 boroughs, Long Island, Westchester, and beyond. And say our focus is on local, state, and national issues. And say that affect our daily lives, our rights and freedom, and the future prosperity of our children. And they talking about the latest news, all of that. So I want to go to not that section, the about section here. Okay, their issues. It said main issues center on the quality of life and advocacy for the Asian community in New York. They don't say for everybody. They don't say minorities. They don't say people of color like the Congressional Black Caucus and all these other black organizations talking about people of color. They clearly say for the Asian community, which they supposed to be saying the Asian community. I'm not upset with them advocating for their people. I'm not. So they're saying that here they talk about language support, talking about ensuring new immigrants have access to language support to help them navigate our cities, small businesses that serves the needs of our community and contribute of our thriving local economy. They worry about their economy. Their economy. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what it's all about for them at the end of the day. Their economy. Black folks, we're not focusing on the economy. We're focused on being too much a consumer. Great schools, the high quality public education. It said that supports. It said and challenges. It said students to be their personal best. And then over here, of course, they got care for seniors, a safe city. So the board members here. As you can see the last names, there's most Chinese names. That's her there. She's a co-founder. And then they talk about all these other people here. Now, let's go to the questionnaire. So if you're a political candidate, you want to be endorsed by the Asian Wave Alliance. It says the AW will engage members, okay, to understand the issues that impact our community. Not people of color, not distressed communities, not minorities, our community, the Asian community. They say know what electeds have done and find out what they will do if elected. They say we will endorse candidates who align with our values, that's Asian values, prioritize the concerns of the Asian community, and demonstrate a record of involvement and making a difference. But when you go to black folks stuff, it's always talking about people of color, minority crap. You see, this is why black folks don't get nowhere. Now, let's go to the people they kind of endorse, and I want y'all to pay attention to something on that. So, in June 2023, the primary elections, what do you notice on here? Or what do you notice that's not on here? If you figured it out already, they don't have a black face on here. Now, since the Asian Wave Alliance, I would expect Asian people to be on there. No problem. Hey, it's the Asian Wave Alliance. But notice there's white folks on here, here, and I don't care if they from Italy. I don't care where they come from. They're white. Here, more white folks. Okay. There may be some Jewish people in here. I don't care. They're white. You scroll down here, the general election. I can only see so much, but I don't see a black face on here. The primary they did back then, you keep noticing the pattern with them? You notice the pattern? Now, this guy here, he's not definitely a black American. I don't know what he is. I don't know what he could be, but he definitely not from the soil. But you can see all that here, and I'm pretty sure he had to sell out for that. But for the most part, everybody endorsing is mostly themselves and the folks, for the most part, out of all of them. Right? So we'll go back here and let's just finish talking about this. So between the guy that you saw and Yatin Chu, for example, right? It's the same mindset that he had in the 60s and what she has in 2023. they get upset when we fight. See, what they want to do is they don't really want. They're okay having some small businesses. They're okay building some banks here and there, but they don't want to build like real like schools. Because they listen. It wouldn't be an issue if they would build their own colleges. Then they could build their own. They got statistically they got more money than black people, so they should build their own colleges, right? But they don't even value their own colleges to create it. They want to sit up there and fight to get into colleges that is ran by them folks. See, if black people were smart, what black people would do is abandon all the PWIs, all of them, and go to the HBCUs. Take all our athletic talent to the HBCUs. Just leave it. And I know the HBCUs got problems, but doggone it, we got to put our foot up their butt and make them do what's right. We got to expose those who's stealing money. We got to call out those who's got their hands in them folks and not fighting for black people. Black folks, if they're going to do this, what they're doing, that's no problem. Just go to, trust me, it will be a wealth transfer. Listen to me. If the black athletes would go to the HBCUs and they make sure that they at the HBCUs, there will literally be a wealth transfer overnight, because nobody goes to watch Brad on Brad football. Nobody goes to watch Brad on Brad basketball. They don't. They want to see the brothers.
Now at Five Below, it's Five Beyond.
Yeah, we'll look for you.
Her door was flung open, and she was thrown out of her room and down
and I hope you're having a marvelous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. Well, I just came here to follow up on that Supreme Court decision. It's being talked about all over broadcast and social media. And if I may take the liberty to do so, I want to encourage black people not to pay attention to these talking heads on television, because they're all talking about how horrible it is. Woe is me. Chicken Little screaming the sky is falling because they ended affirmative action in these PWI schools. Too many black men are crying about how horrible it is, even as they claim that white women benefited more from affirmative action than black people did. So what are we crying about? White women are not crying all over television about the end of affirmative action. They're saying how awful it is for black people. They don't see this as a loss for them because they know there are other ways to succeed in life besides going to Harvard. The Latinos are not crying about it, and they keep saying black and Latino people, but they're not out there crying about it. It's black people, and mostly black men. It's weak, and it's giving, "Oh, Master, you did it to me again," as if they expected something different. This has been coming on for a long time, and we all know it. Even the president of Howard University, who should be glad because he says he's looking for an influx of students because of this, and hopefully he will have an influx of students. He was out here talking about how horrible this was and how this was going to be a setback to the black community. He even referenced the number of black doctors there were in 1978, I believe that was the year, versus 2023. And he's going to blame that on white people as opposed to black people not being interested in going to med or dental school or not applying themselves so they can be accepted in some of these schools. In addition to the fact that there are 5 black medical schools in the United States and PWIs that black medical students attend. So I mean, this is ridiculous and it's embarrassing. It is horrible that they would end a program that was designed to help the descendants of people who had been enslaved and had gone through a Jim Crow system, which was a second slavery, for so many years, for hundreds of years. So it's horrible in the way that they don't ever intend to rectify what was done to black people. And so they looked for every avenue to end anything that was designed to specifically help us. Yes, in that respect, it's horrible. But by now, we should have grown up and know we're not dealing with honest people. Furthermore, there is a fundamental dysfunction in many European people. Deep within themselves, I don't believe they think they're enough, and they will never have enough as long as they think we have anything. If we have it, somehow we took it from them. They deserve it. There is something dysfunctional about people who think like that. So we actually have to rise above their thinking.
They begin their usual process of bringing in their teeth for an extended period of time.
If we want to be whole and healthy. So for those who are grasping at the affirmative action straws, there is hope for you. Listen to what the Chief Justice said. Nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. But despite the dissent's assertion to the contrary, universities may not simply establish through application essays or other means the regime we hold unlawful today. So in other words, the only way you can use race is how we say you use race, not just because you say you're black. That's really what he's saying. So Massa, in the person of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, has given us our directive. If you want to use race, you can use race, but only the way I say you can use it. It's almost as if some of us don't even know what pride looks like. It looks like you are constantly going back to the trough, begging for slop. There are so many more avenues for black Americans to succeed. I believe that America likes to see black people suffering. They like to see us hurting. But instead of us staring it down, we lean into it. They took away affirmative action. This is going to do damage for us for the next 100 years. Why can't we ever say, oh well, we don't want our children to go to Harvard anyway. It's not culturally beneficial to them to go to a school like Harvard where most of the students got in on legacy or because somebody paid money for them to get in. How come we can't ever take that attitude? We'll talk about the legacies and talk about how unfair they are, but we can't ever use it in a conversation that makes it look like we have a nickel's worth of common sense. My mother had a friend, and her friend was overweight, and people were always telling her, oh, how much bigger you gonna get? You're so big, how much bigger you gonna get? So one day somebody asked her, well, how much bigger you gonna get? You're just so big. And she said, well, you should have seen me yesterday. I was twice times bigger than this. So, we don't ever have a comeback. All we know how to do is beg. Booker T. Washington and the Dallas County Community built Tuskegee Institute in 1881, and that school is still going strong. All it needs is funding. We have perfectly good HBCU schools. All they need is funding. And the problem with HBCUs is that they will employ somebody to do a job and they don't know how to do it. For instance, if you're supposed to be a fundraiser for the school, then you're supposed to be a fundraiser for the school. You have to get out there with people with money. Booker T. Washington was all up in the Northeast going door to door asking for money for Tuskegee Institute. And some of those donors are still giving money. The descendants of some of those donors are still giving money to Tuskegee Institute. These so-called black millionaires and sometimes billionaires are just throwing away money in strip clubs and buying cars and jewelry. I don't think we know how to activate the resource. A lot of people would give if they knew who to give it to, where to send it to, and what it was going to be for. But I don't believe that black colleges, I don't believe that HBCUs do a good enough job of recruiting donors for the institutions, still relying on white people to give, especially with these private institutions, but never activate the resource within the community. In these communities where these HBCUs are, I don't ever hear about a fundraiser, even with the black churches, where you could ask to give, to that college for one Sunday out of the year. Ask the members of the church to give $25, and then ask the church to give $500. If they can't do that, they need to close their doors. But we don't do that. We just complain when we don't give, and we need to do this, and the government won't do that, when we can do a lot of things for ourselves. J.R. Smith, who was a basketball player, said he spent $60,000 a night in strip clubs. Now, how many of them are actually doing that? But they don't even know what to do. Some of those kids are so young, they don't even know what to do with the money. And I believe that many of them, before they throw all of that money away, would give to a worthy cause that they knew about, if somebody would ask. So we have not because we ask not. We have our own infrastructure. We just need to support it and stop chasing whiteness. I just wish that one time when a blow like this has been dealt to black people, or what many perceive as a blow, I wish that we could respond with strength. The strength as in, well, we were thinking about not going to Harvard anymore anyway, because we're going to build up our own schools. And then talk about a plan that we have to build up HBCUs. And this will be a good time to name drop about some of these wealthy donors who have not transferred their wealth into the white community. See, that becomes back a problem for us. Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie Scott, gave away $1.7 billion, and several millions of those dollars went to HBCUs. She gave away that money, and the very manosphere, these black guys, these Negroes in the manosphere, were complaining because she got half of his wealth that he has doubled since he divorced her. But that's what they were complaining about. But she took her money and gave it to worthy causes, many of which were HBCUs. Oprah Winfrey, one of the black celebrities that so many black people want to beat up on now for whatever reason, has put millions of dollars into the black community, including HBCUs. And there are others who have done an outstanding job. But I believe that there are others who would do more if they knew about the HBCUs. Many black people have made money outside of the HBCU system. And yes, I give back to my HBCU. And please don't come on this page telling me they can do what they want to with their money. It goes without saying they can do what they want to with their money. But if they care about the black community and they have money, rather than giving it all back to the white man through these white women, they could give a little bit of it to black causes. There's enough black people invested in the black community to get things done. I wish we would learn to come across as being strong. That we have other options, that's their decision, we respect their decision. And for the black students who really want to go to Harvard, they can write the essay, find out what the requirements are, prepare for it, start preparing for it when they're in the 8th or 9th grade. Harvard was designed for wealthy white students. It was not designed for poor people of any race. And this whole testing thing was thrown in to keep black people out after they passed affirmative action. It was never designed for poor people. But now that the genie is out of the bottle and they have to make some modifications, including accepting a diverse demographic of students into their program, well, yeah, black students can come, write the essay telling how your life has been affected by blackness, have an impressive GPA, and have a long list of extracurricular activities that you engaged in as a high school student. And we know nothing is going to change. I said that in my other video, and pretty much that's what Harvard is saying. We're not going to change anything. We're going to continue doing what we're doing. And other colleges are revising their program to fit their needs. I don't understand how we can't ever look into a situation and say, okay, that's what you're going to do. This is what we're going to do. But we have such a history of begging for acceptance that I don't think we know how to do it. I don't think some of us know how to do anything different. But I wish sometimes they would turn Harvard down, because Harvard is the same school that has those pictures of those enslaved people. It's a picture of an enslaved man and his daughter, and then they've got separate pictures of them. They were photographed in South Carolina in March of 1850. They were forced to take their clothes off, so they were photographed naked. A professor at Harvard commissioned those pictures, and they have held on to them since the 1850s. This man's descendant, Tamara Lanier, brought a lawsuit against Harvard trying to recover those pictures of her ancestors. She stated correctly that the pictures were humiliating and that they were exploiting her ancestors. But the judge ruled against her, saying that the pictures belonged to Harvard. So Harvard is still in possession of those pictures, and they're making money off the pictures. In a 2017 conference, they used this man's likeness. They also charge a large licensing fee for anybody who wants to reproduce the image. And they have a book out called From Site to Site. It sells for $40, and they've got him on the cover. So they're still making money off the enslaved people. We don't need to be begging them. And as far as the University of North Carolina is concerned, the University of North Carolina is one of the few universities in the United States that has apologized for their involvement in slavery. And they have a large population of black students relative to their numbers in the state, and they're going to continue to have a large population, not only at Chapel Hill, but all over the state. Black Americans have many options in the United States, many opportunities to succeed. And then I really wish that we had some serious leadership on the national level, so that every time something happens, they don't start crying about, oh, look what they did to black people. But hopefully all of our students won't even want to go to Harvard. Hopefully black students will rethink this whole thing about running to these schools and
inside the walls,
Yep.
as well as disembodied breathing, are all signs of demonic infestation.
Hey, you know, this time of year, we all keep getting pinged with political fundraising asks. But here's the thing.
Well, it did not take long, ladies and gentlemen, that the Asian community is complaining about alleged racism. Now, they're complaining about alleged racism in tech jobs. Now, remember, it was people like Yatin Chu that helped lead the charge with Students for Fair Admissions to strike down affirmative action in college admissions. She said that she has been on a quest to do this, and she is happy that it was done. But as I said before, when you play footsies of white supremacy, it always gonna turn on you. Now let's get into what they're complaining about now. So they were saying that a lot of them have worked at Disney, Google, and Twitter. This one woman named Vaishnavi Jayakumar joined Facebook and Instagram on a Meta in January 2020. Interesting time. Now they say her job, they say it was on the youth policy team, was to protect children and teens from bullying, harassment, and other forms of abuse. But Jayakumar, originally from Singapore, says she couldn't shield herself from racial bias on the job. Well, what racial bias? What are y'all talking about? There's no racial bias or anything like that. I mean, clearly there's not, because you were fighting about affirmative action, and affirmative action was created so black people can have a chance to get in certain spaces, because we were denied those things due to the color of our skin. And see, when you play yourself, Asian community, in white supremacy, these are the things that has happened. It says, soon after inquiring how she could move up at Meta, Jaya Kumar says her supervisor began leaving her out of opportunities and initiatives that used to be in her scope and layering her under less experienced employees. Now, where have I seen that before? Where have I even heard that before? Oh, yeah, black people. Yeah, we have experienced that. But when you try to get with white supremacy and say, well, they treat me just a lot better than the blacks, so I'm going to stay over here with team white supremacy. I'm going to join the white supremacists against black people. And the whole time, they've been dogging you out with racism. You see, how does that work? Well, let's continue. And say, despite years of experience and positive feedback as a team player, Jaya Kumar says her supervisor told her she was not senior or collaborative enough to be promoted. According to a complaint Jaya Kumar filed with the California Civil Rights Department, and say while her workload and responsibility increased, Jaya Kumar says her performance ratings began to slip. But I'm laughing because these people, they don't know no other way to be. And you new people that show up in America, you think, oh, well, I got more education than black people. Oh, I come from a 2-parent household. Oh, I got more money. It don't matter in white supremacy. You think black people don't have 2-parent households? You think black people aren't smart? You think black people can't pass an SAT or ACT? You think black people can't do all these requirements to get into these colleges and universities? Black people's position in America is engineered by design, it's not organic. And white folks' position in America is engineered by design, it's not organic, okay? And it's maintained through military and police, along with the politicians. That's how it's maintained. Asians are a buffer group. And in a system of white supremacy, yes, they will be treated better. But they also not going to be treated with the level of white folk. And instead of them realizing that and saying, you know what, I need to get with black people, because black people, if I have a problem, the black people come to my defense. These other group of people don't come to my defense. Not whatsoever. And this is how y'all played yourself. You played yourself. Let's continue. The woman says, I've never felt more keenly that as an Asian woman, I'm destined to be a worker. She said, I'm not destined to be a leader, she said. And that's an awful feeling. Yeah, it is. When you go to a job every day, you're smarter than everybody else there. And they hire the dumbest, remedial white supremacists. They get you to train them. And then they be your supervisor in 6 months. That is really demeaning and humiliating. But y'all thought y'all knew better. Jaya Kumar is one of the growing number of Asian Americans in the tech industry breaking their silence and going public, and say with charges of discrimination and retaliation. They say in a series of recently filed lawsuits, they say that racial bias is spanning decades in Silicon Valley that typecast Asian Americans as worker bees have shut them out of management and executive positions with greater power, profile, and pay. And they do the same thing to black people. And they've been doing it to black people. But once again, I'm going to keep interjecting this. Y'all in California, y'all was going against black folks in California when they talked about affirmative action and other programs to benefit black people. Y'all did that. They had a state, West Coast state, I think in Washington State. During the time of the pandemic, they had the legislator wanted to set aside money for black-owned businesses in Washington State. It was a Hispanic, an Asian, and a white person all sued to try to stop black people from getting money for black-owned business. Y'all's a part of that too. See, this is why you're on your own with this. See, you're on your own dealing with the beast. You can't come this way. You can't. The only way you'll be able to come this way, unless you are an individual that put in a lot of work and have proven yourself to be a ally for real, then we have no problem siding with an individual, but just whole groups, no. They say the pattern of discrimination experienced by Mrs. Jaya Kumar mirrors that faced by a broader Asian community. Others make assumptions about what work Asian Americans are suited for. Jaya Kumar's complaint said Asian Americans are unsupported in the workplace in taking on leadership opportunities. Yeah, just like black folk. I say through her lawyer, Jaya Kumar is demanding that Meta make policy changes from tracking the rates of promotion for Asian Americans to training managers in tropes and stereotypes about Asian American employees. Meta declined to comment. See, this is where you messed up. See, when you fought to get affirmative action overturned with college admissions, you know that's going to bleed into jobs. You see, when the Supreme Court said about race-neutral policies, then Meta really don't have to do any race-neutral policies anymore because that's what you guys fought for. They don't have to create nothing just specifically for Asian Americans anymore. You understand? Because we all need to be race-neutral. We all need to be colorblind. And we know what colorblind really means. So,
for anyone between the ages of 49 to 64 who is unable to work for medical reasons,
现在每一张外贸订单都要倍加珍惜。温州不是说有80%的鞋厂没有生意，而是99%的鞋厂都没有订单。有不少人表示，如果再没有订单的话，只能关门大吉。今年做外贸实在太难了，国外客户取消了2个货柜的订单，现在有几千箱交在库存，便宜处理一下。大家看一下，仓库都放不下了，这些价值有100多个 W。
今年外贸非常惨了，我一个朋友做外贸，一年有800个货柜的，现在只有100多个货柜。另外一个朋友开工厂的，原来的订单现在萎缩90%，只剩10%。而另外一家有新加坡的都受到影响，直接要裁员50%来应对目前的这个危机。
These are the real situations facing owners in China's foreign trade enterprises. We have also reported many times before that since the beginning of this year, ports in Shanghai and Shenzhen have been piled high with empty containers. Many foreign trade owners are struggling without orders and have had to give their workers time off or even shut down factories outright. However, the data released by the Chinese government for January to April showed that China's foreign trade was still growing. Moreover, there is a large discrepancy between the foreign trade import and export data published by the Chinese government and that released by countries like Vietnam, leading us to suspect data fabrication. One wonders if the figures from a few months ago were tampered with too heavily, revealing too many inconsistencies. It might be hard for China's customs to continue concealing the truth, which is why the foreign trade data for May, which was released recently, seems to have somewhat returned to normal. On June 7th, China's General Administration of Customs released the import and export data for May. Valued in US dollars, China's exports in May were $283.5 billion, a year-on-year decrease of 7.5%, far higher than the market expectation of a 0.4% decline. This ended China's trend of positive export growth for 2 consecutive months since March this year. Imports in May were $217.69 billion, down 4.5% year-on-year. The trade surplus was $65.81 billion, a 16.1% year-on-year decrease. Why did China's imports and exports fall so much in May? Economists have analyzed that poor export performance reflects a global decrease in demand for Chinese goods. Poor import performance is likewise, as China imports parts and materials from other countries to assemble finished products for export. Notably, the import of integrated circuits, including chips, fell 19.6% year-on-year. This corresponds with our previous reports that large electronics assembly factories, including Foxconn, are gradually withdrawing from China. Economist Xi Ling stated that the latest data shows that China has lost its position as the world's factory. Macroeconomic controls can't stop the downturn, and even a significant devaluation of the renminbi fails to stimulate imports and exports. This is likely to impact China's overall economic growth for the year. Let's take a closer look at the data. A press release from China's General Administration of Customs shows that, except for increases in trade with Italy, Indonesia, the UK, Canada, and Latin America, there were declines in several other major export markets, such as the United States, the European Union, Japan, and ASEAN countries. Let's look at the United States first. In May, China's export trade volume to the United States was $544 million less than in April, and $9.475 billion less than the same period last year. This year-on-year decline exceeded 18%. In the first 5 months of this year, China's exports to the United States decreased by 8.5%. In May, China's export trade volume to the EU was $113 million less than in April, and $3.375 billion less than the same period last year, representing a year-on-year decline of more than 7%. Looking at ASEAN, the export trade volume in May was $4.7 billion less than in April. Compared to the same period last year, China's export trade volume to ASEAN decreased by $7.85 billion, a decrease of 16%. This is the first decline since May 2020. The decrease in China's exports to ASEAN is also related to a decrease in export trade in ASEAN countries themselves. A lot of ASEAN's finished product exports are assembled or rebranded from parts or semi-finished products imported from China, then exported to countries like Europe and America. This helps avoid high tariffs that will be imposed if these countries were to import directly from China. Therefore, if the demand in the European and American markets decreases, ASEAN's export volume would also decrease, and consequently, the semi-finished products imported from China should also decrease. Comparing with ASEAN's own import and export trade data, the data for China's exports to ASEAN in May seems logical. However, the growth in the first 4 months looks somewhat inexplicable. For example, according to data released by China, in May, China's export trade volume to Vietnam decreased by $880 million, a decrease of $3.4 billion compared to the same period last year, a year-on-year decrease of 23.3%. However, from January to April this year, China's export trade volume to Vietnam actually increased by 5.2% year-on-year. It wasn't until the May data was released that the export trade volume to Vietnam from January to May showed a year-on-year decrease of 1.8%. When we look at Vietnam's own import and export data, we find that Vietnam's exports in the first 4 months of this year decreased by 11.8% year-on-year, and imports decreased by 15.4% year-on-year. Interestingly, China, as Vietnam's largest source of imports, managed to maintain growth in exports to Vietnam in the first 4 months. Doesn't this strike you as strange? According to Vietnam's official data, the recorded trade volume from imports from China from January to April was $33.3 billion, but the figure given by China's General Administration of Customs for exports to Vietnam was $45.57 billion. A direct 37% higher than Vietnam's data. This discrepancy is indeed quite significant. For the first 4 months of 2022, Vietnam's official data shows that its import trade volume from China was $36.78 billion. Therefore, according to Vietnam's official data, Vietnam's imports from China decreased by $3.48 billion in the first 4 months of this year, a year-on-year decrease of 9.5%. This number is more in line with the overall decrease in Vietnam's imports this year. However, the number provided by China officially diverges significantly, surprisingly showing a year-on-year increase of 5.2% in exports to Vietnam in the first 4 months of this year. Judge for yourself, whose data do you find more trustworthy? Furthermore, data shows that China's export trade volume to Taiwan in May was $700 million less than in April, and $2.64 billion less than the same period last year, a year-on-year decline of 33.6%. This decline is the highest among all countries. This led to a decrease of about 20% in the total value of China's import and exports to Taiwan from January to May this year. This may be related to the escalating tensions across the Taiwan Strait. China's import and export data for New Zealand and Japan also fell. Surprisingly, China's export trade volume to Russia in May was $680 million less than the previous month. However, compared to the same period last year, it still nearly doubled. From January to May this year, China's total value of imports and exports to Russia increased by 51% year-on-year, with exports sharply increasing by nearly 90%. Of course, this is also related to the current sanctions Russia is facing from Western countries. However, analysts pointed out that China's exports to Russia are essentially a face-saving project just to make the foreign trade data look better. It doesn't earn US dollars, nor bring real benefits. This is because there is a currency swap agreement between China and Russia. In other words, the renminbi Russia uses to pay for imports from China can be borrowed from China through the currency swap agreement. It's like using your money to buy your own goods. No matter how you calculate it, it seems like a loss for China. This is not even counting the cost China has to pay for offending countries like Europe and America. No wonder many commentators call Russia the Russian father of the Chinese.
I struggle with guilt, with being away from my family.
Basketball. They don't. They want to see the brothers. Listen, their own people don't want to see them playing. Because they know good and well what's going to happen when they play the HBCUs. They're going to be losing. And then they're going to get upset. And then when they get upset, they're going to be trying to stop black people from going to the HBCU. That's what they do. They feel like they got a monopoly on our talent. Because why didn't they talk about it's unfair for all these black people be playing basketball and all these black people playing football? Why you didn't fight for equality for that? I mean, you can, right? But these coaches is the one that's going to choose these black people to play on their teams. But you have a hostility toward us, and we didn't do you nothing. We didn't drop no bombs in your country. We never destabilized any Asian country, no African country, no black American for sure, have done anything to no Asian countries. If anything, we have fought for you, spoke up for you, say hey, it's wrong to treat an Asian person like that. We have supported your businesses in our communities. Even when you was acting a plumb fool, you still was getting some black dollars. There's so much of a black transfer of money to their communities so they can afford to pay for their kids to go to freaking Harvard and Yale and Columbia and Brown University and places like that. A lot of their money comes from black people's pockets. And you would think they like the Democrat Party. You would think they would be like, okay, man, black people, my customer base, man, look, I'm going to stay good with black people, man. I'm going to be doing the Juneteenth celebration. I'm going to be talking about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, hey, whatever black people, look, they want a hip-hop month, I do whatever, that's my biggest customer, I'm with them. You would think that would be their mindset, but no, they act like the white supremacists, acting arrogant. Thinking, oh, black people, they got to give me this money. That's their mindset about you. Yeah. You gotta give them the money. You know, you can't go nowhere else to get no product, no food, no nails done, hair, anything that you need. You can't go nowhere else, but you got to deal with them. And then for years, they have been putting their hands on black women. And so many black women and men have say, hey, y'all stay out of them people business. Then you get mad. That's why I got to a point I stopped covering it. I stopped covering it when they putting their hands on y'all. Because you willingly go right back. Willingly. And that got me so frustrated. I said no other group of people would do that but y'all. It's like you're okay with people putting their hands on you, abusing you. Oh, but unless they black, then they black, you're ready to take their head off. But if it's anybody else outside of black, you'll justify it. Well, I need this, I need that, like you can't get it online. Shoot, you know how many things I order from Amazon? I go on my phone, oh, I need this, boom, 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 boom. It's at my door sometime the same day or the following day. A lot of times. I don't have to go to the store to hardly get anything anymore. If I need stuff, or I need some light bulbs, like I just changed all the light bulbs in my house. I I didn't step out my house to get them bulbs, except that when it came to my door, I went and grabbed that right there, opened it up, put everything I needed to put. I didn't go to nobody's business to get it other than buying it from Amazon. You can buy the majority almost of everything from Amazon. Now, of course, you go to the grocery store or whatever, right? But if you have a hostility toward us, and we're seeing a pattern of Chinese people, we're seeing this pattern. Like I say, we didn't do that to Chinese people. We didn't. So, and then you in Africa too. You all in the African continent. And we've seen videos of y'all putting hands on Africans. Now, the Africans and all that stuff start coming out, then y'all ambassadors quick to get y'all out of there, because they know that if the Africans get mad at them, they gonna kick them on out of there. And they don't want that, because they want them resources. But black folks haven't done them anything. But yet you got this hostility. This is, once again, it goes back to Dr. John Henry Clark. We have no friends. And not because we're not friendly. We're the most friendly group of people. Listen, I'm going to tell you, some of you say that you're not African. One telltale sign to me that you are African is that you're extremely welcoming. That's how Africans are. Every African country I go to, they open their arms to everybody. And you the exact same way. There's so many similarities with them and you. That's why when y'all tell me I'm not no African, I'm this and that and the third, I always use that statement like, you know, you take a German Shepherd out of Germany and make him be raised in America. He can be 10 generations in America that breed a dog. It's still a German Shepherd. It's not no American Shepherd. So, but I don't argue with y'all with that anymore. I just don't waste my time with it, because it's kind of like arguing science, and I'm not going to argue science with nobody. That's just kind of stupid at this point. But there's no reason for any hostility toward the black community. And the reason why I want to make sure to delineate Asians, and not just say Asians, because it's not all Asians that's pushing this. So I don't want to put it all on Asians. And I'm not going to say all Chinese people are pushing it either. I'm not saying that either, because I don't need a ton of emails from Chinese people say, hey man, I don't feel that way. I support this. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you. But what I am talking about is there has been a history. If Chinese, Koreans was another one. Remember Latasha Harlins? Remember her? You remember all the different things that has happened over the years? Come on now. I mean, we haven't. Where's the stories of a black business owner gunning down a young Asian girl like that? That's not something that we just go and do. If you in the neighborhood and you got robbed by Pookie and Ray Ray, if you was a black owned business, Pookie and Ray Ray would have robbed you too. Probably robbed you a lot faster if you was a black owned business. So crime is crime. It's gonna happen. Or they be targeting us, and you're in the neighborhood, you're gonna get targeted. Trust me, you're not special where they're not gonna target you. Pookie and Ray Ray be on one. But one thing I noticed they don't go put their footprint in the white community like that. They got some businesses there, but not like they do with black people. They make sure to have all kind of businesses in the black community. Matter of fact, they cook food they won't even eat themselves. They won't even eat it. They even admit, you listen to TikTok, they say, oh no, we don't eat the food that we serve y'all. We cook the good food at home. We give y'all the trash food. And you wonder why black folks that be, cause I always think it's strange, cause let's call it what it is.
Quit going to college. Quit your job. You're never going to learn how to make any money going to.
I'm gonna leave it like this. Well, it's up to you. But clearly, there's a jealousy streak with some people against black people. Anytime we're on TV, we're doing something. It's just something that how can you? It's almost like some people like that think that how can these dark skinned people? And I think it's a racial class too, because it's colorism. Because they think that dark shit is unintelligent. That's what I think over China. But I showed that it's like, do you really want to make an enemy with us? With some of our products coming to America from China, which is apparently to Asian American Chinese, and buying their product. You see what happened? They closed their factory down. Being jealous and hateful at us has cost them millions, even in China. And it's so bad that even there was another video showing that even they can't rent apartments over there no more in China. So I hope that the jealousy and resentment towards us is merit. So even they're back in their native land of China, they catching it. That's why I showed that video. So I hope the jealousy, the envious was worth it. Trying to stop these people was worth it. Because now it's coming back to bite you in the butt. And for your descendants over in China. Chinese are struggling over in China right now. Yeah. Factory shippings and everything. That's all I gotta say about that. And for black people, well, what you gonna do? You gonna keep taking it? What you gonna do? You gonna keep supporting this business? What you gonna do? You see, clearly that's a dig at you, but it backfired on them. On poor Asians, Vietnamese, Filipinos, Thailand, Singaporeans that brought here in America. So it's Chinese that pushed that. Chinese with money that pushed that. And they get used by the right. So I hope they was happy with that, because you just cost more Asians to get discriminated on the job, get discriminated in college, and they don't have to, like he said, they don't have to hire you. You know, while you hate and being jealous at us, and trying to stop us from east to west, you don't, like he said, some of them don't like you, but they'll use you. Just like they probably some of them use us. So it is what it is. You know, it is what it is. So I hope you enjoy this video. Yeah, so if any Asian person was racist, I hope it was worth it. Especially Chinese. I hope it was worth it. I hope it was worth it. Now, back in your home country, your people are suffering because of your jealousy, because you're vague and you're envious towards another people who done you no wrong, but you put as a lower class and upper class. You mocked and made fun of. Now it's come back and hit you in the butt because you thought you were God over because of the totem pole says. America taught some people to be racist, and it's too bad that the elders in it, some of the elders had it in the community. When they talk to the elders over there in China, you'll see. And I know someone's gonna keep buying stuff because we just giving people. But as for now that you've been exposed, it depends on how business across America and the black community gonna support you now. So, especially with social media. So I just hope it was worth it. Now you hurt other Asian people. You don't get no favorites. Your land that it has a segment will use you to knock down others, but really do your history. They did this in the Latino community. He did that with Mexicans and Mexican Americans when they fought in the war. And he promised the Mexican Americans who took land, you push back up, you push back the Mexicans, we'll get your land. Well, when the time comes, the Mexicans will get the land. But they fought against their own. You ain't the only one that's been through that. Native American Indians been through it too. And they find out they get screwed in the end. So hey, is it worth being jealousy and envious of somebody? That's my question. Let this be a lesson to somebody who has an envious jealousy spirit towards any group of people, who has not have harmed them or come near them. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, take care.